Update: I exposed my ex-husband's lies to my son. Original post: when our son was around 8 years old, my husband started acting different, more secretive and accusing. Me talking with a guy friend or being friendly to the barista equaled straying eyes. I found out a couple of months later he was having an affair with his coworker. I immediately filed for divorce and left him, and we had joint custody of our son. Of course, I constantly reassured him that the divorce wasn't his fault. I didn't want him to hate his dad because of his love for me. So I just lied about the reason and said that adults grow apart sometimes, and that's just how it is. But for some reason, he was never convinced. Well, I now know the reason. Years have passed. I just found out that my son thinks the divorce was my fault. I was livid when he mentioned it to me, not mad at him of course. He told me that ever since I started dating my new boyfriend, his dad revealed the truth of the divorce, which is that I got paranoid, disrupted his work life, became distant, and best of all, I cheated on him. I can tell you right now I did not. I confronted that piece of trash, and he got flustered, started screaming cuss words at me, cussing out his own son in the process. He told me that it's all because I didn't forgive him and that I'm rubbing my new boyfriend in his face. I'm literally not. I don't even want the two of them mingling. So of course I come back home and tell my son the whole truth. He's refusing to talk to his father now and doesn't want to go over to his house. I'm being cussed out by his side of the family for ripping a father away from his son, but I couldn't care less. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Classic Fafo. He became exposed as the bad guy while trying to frame you. I'm glad your kid is smart enough to know who the liar is and who the victim is. I'm just thankful I didn't fail as a parent and managed to raise a good person. I find it hilarious that the family was okay with him ripping your son away from you by lying and telling him you were the one that cheated, but are pissed that you told the truth. And now your kid doesn't want anything to do with his dad, and rightfully so. I guarantee if your ex had been honest, your kid would have been mad, but eventually come around. But since he lied to him and blamed you, I don't know if he's ever going to want to come around. And that's all your ex's fault. Boo-hoo for his side of the family, being stupid collateral damage that encouraged the lie. That's like my ex-husband's family. It's always been okay for them to lie, cheat, and steal, but no one is allowed to do any of it to them, because they're just so special. This sounds like my relationship with my kid's father. I told them we had just drifted apart, and he still loves them. And as they got older, he told our youngest, she was probably 12 at the time, 14 now, that I broke his heart and I cheated. So I blew up his world with the truth. I told them he mentally and verbally abused me. He took my medication away from me while we were on vacation, so I would act crazy. But he just magically found them in the drawer me and my family, and I looked in. And he was the one, in fact, that cheated. And all the years that he was never there, I was the one putting gifts under the tree, signing his name because I didn't want them to feel like he didn't love them. I made so many excuses to them about their dad to make him look like a good guy. Yeah, never again. Now for the update. My son has gone fully no contact with his bio dad. As for his emotional state, the shock has subsided a bit and has been replaced with anger. When he made his decision final, I got a death threat from my ex-mother-in-law. My ex-sister-in-law started harassing my own parents, and my ex-husband showed up at my door angry and drunk. I've kept records of everything that they've done until now. I called the police and had my ex escorted off the property when he refused to leave and started to get violent with my boyfriend. I thought about hiding all this from my son because he's had enough of a shock, but I figured that lying to him in the first place is what got us into this mess, so he knows everything. The good news is that they've stopped harassing me for the time being. I guess the police escorting my ex away from my house was a wake-up call for them. They contacted me once to ask me not to press charges, and haven't contacted me since. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not buying for or making my son share school supplies with his step and half siblings? I have one son who is 15. My ex and I broke up when he was 1, and my ex is now married to someone else and has 3 more children and 2 stepchildren. We split 50-50 custody and have always purchased things for each house instead of stuff that goes between houses. Only now my ex and his wife are financially struggling, and they are resentful because my son got all new things for school this year that I purchased, and they had to reuse old stuff for their other kids. At first, I was asked to donate supplies to them in order to show we're all one family, which we're not. We have a common family member, but I am not my ex's family and he is not mine. This would never be done if the shoe was on the other foot, and he was always especially possessive of things he bought for our son when our son was younger. When this failed, my ex decided our son should share what he has with the other kids. So my son decided to take none of it to his dad's house. He finishes homework at school and leaves his supplies in his locker for the next day. My ex told me I should not be okay with this. But I am. It's not my job to buy these other kids' supplies, and my son needs his own supplies. Why should I ask him to give away stuff he needs? I asked my ex and he said more could be purchased. I told him that's as good as making me buy for his kids who are not mine, and I told him that will never happen. Ex's wife told me I am a selfish C-word and how freaking dare I make her kids feel like crap when they see my son with everything shiny and new, and they don't have that. I told her that's for her and my ex to figure out, not for me. My ex said I was teaching our son to not help family and that I'm being spiteful against kids. I asked him would he be so willing to help any child of mine I had after him, and he told me it's different because men always have to pay child support. And I asked him why his stepkids don't have child support being paid then. That could have given them the money for new supplies. At that point, the conversation ended, but they are extremely hostile toward me now. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Seriously, why isn't she getting child support? A question they can now reflect on, I suppose. And your son thoughtfully removed the argument that the steps and halves have to see his shiny new supplies because he doesn't bring them to the house for fear of theft. Are her kids from different dads and she doesn't have contact with either of them? Or is it that she doesn't even know who the fathers are? They have the same father, who's a deadbeat from what I have been told. Sucks for her that she has dismal taste in men, but that sure as heck ain't your problem. Not the a-hole. I would recommend all future correspondence with your ex and his wife be through one of those parenting apps, if it isn't already, especially if they're going to be nasty. Document everything. I have a feeling with the level of entitlement shown already from them that this situation may get worse before they back off. Not the a-hole. I am willing to bet he started the culture of separate things for separate households. Only 3 more years with this and you'll be free. You would be correct, and he did it in the most aggressive way possible. He damaged his relationship with our son in the process too. Not the a-hole. You've already said it. This is not your responsibility. Maybe his kids will learn the valuable lesson of, hey, maybe we should not make the same mistakes our parents did. And that they don't need everything to be brand new. They're using leftover and partially used supplies from last year, not having to share a single stub of a pencil and write all of their homework on whatever scrap paper they can scrounge up from the neighbor's recyclables. When I was in school, it was a safe bet that A, I wouldn't use every exercise book and notepad in the bulk packs bought at the start of the school year. B, at least some of the exercise books and notepads I had used would only have a few pages worth of use. C, I wouldn't have used every pencil until I had nothing but stubs left. And D, pens still had plenty of ink left, especially cartridge pens. Hope his son is 15, and presumably not bringing boxes of crayons to school. Next story. I was right about the paternity test. I had a vasectomy 10 years ago. It wasn't something I rushed into. It was a well-thought-out decision that I knew was permanent. I had no interest in having children, and I wanted to take responsibility for making sure accidents wouldn't happen. I went through the surgery, recovered, and lived the past decade with complete confidence that pregnancy was off the table. Fast forward to now, my long-term girlfriend, the woman I've been with for years, suddenly comes to me and tells me she's pregnant. She even shows me the test, looking me straight in the eye, expecting me to share her excitement. My reaction wasn't what she wanted, though. My first response was simple. I want a paternity test. It wasn't that I didn't trust her at all. For years, we've been together, and I believed in her loyalty, but the science is clear. I had a vasectomy. After years of having regular sex with her, raw, no protection, and countless times finishing in her, why now, a decade later, would she suddenly end up pregnant? The timing didn't make sense. The odds were astronomically low. If she really was pregnant, then I needed proof, because everything about the situation screamed that something wasn't right. When I said this, she flipped. She told me that me asking for a test was a deal breaker, that I was insulting her and showing that I didn't trust her at all. But I stood my ground. I told her flat out, I'm willing to risk the relationship over this. I need to know the truth. The days between that conversation and when we finally got the test done were awful. The tension in the apartment was like a cloud hanging over us. She kept trying to act normal sometimes. Other times she was cold, but I stayed quiet and waited. Then the results came back. And guess what? I was freaking right. The kid wasn't mine. The moment I saw the proof, I packed my bags. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I let her keep the electronics, the TV, whatever she wanted. I just left. I make decent money, so I wasn't worried about rebuilding my life from scratch, but it still stung to walk out on years of my life like that. For the first few days after I left, she kept trying to call. I ignored it. Then came the texts. That's when she told me some story about how maybe she was violated but didn't remember. I'll be honest, I don't believe her. Maybe that makes me harsh, but the timing and the way she framed it felt like a desperate excuse. If that were true, wouldn't she have told me immediately? Wouldn't she have gone to the police, or at least shared her trauma instead of smiling while showing me a pregnancy test? It didn't add up. I can't say I'm not devastated. My anger covers most of it, but underneath it hurts. I keep thinking, how long was she cheating on me? How much of our relationship was a lie? When she was with me, was she faking her orgasms after sleeping with someone else? Did she ever really love me at all? Or was she just using me for stability while having her fun elsewhere? Cheaters deserve nothing, and I know I dodged a bullet by not being married to her. But the truth is, I feel broken right now. My story might sound dramatic, but living it is painful. I don't know when I'll be able to trust anyone again. Get tested and block her. In the process of testing, thanks. I am sorry this happened to you. Hope you can heal, and make sure she doesn't try to make you pay for the child in any way. I blocked her and her family on everything and told my parents, who loved her. Oh man, now that you've threatened to leave if you don't get a paternity test, she thinks she might have been essayed and can't remember? I don't think so. Why the heck aren't cheaters who have sterile partners the most careful with birth control? It's the most obvious tell that they've been cheating. I'm so sorry this happened to you. She's a piece of work and I hope she gets an abortion. I wouldn't wish a mother like that, one who would make up a false essay story in order to hide cheating, on anyone. To be fair, spontaneous reversals are a thing. Also, people use birth control for more than just what the name implies. A little story. When I got snipped many years ago, I did all my tests and was sure I was shooting blanks before my wife had her IUD removed. About 4 to 5 years later, she had a friend who got pregnant but her husband was snipped. The husband got tested and one vase had reattached. He had been snipped for 5 years. This scared me so much that I called my urologist and said I wanted an order for a sperm test. The receptionist gave me a hassle about why I was seeking a test so many years afterward. I then told her about our friends. She busted out laughing and said, "Come on by and get the order." And they wrote it as stat. I immediately went to the lab, did the deed, and waited. The lab tech called me up looking solemn and said there were no sperm present. I smiled and said thank you. She then asked, "Is that what you wanted to hear?" I said absolutely. I think she was expecting me to be sad. Last story. Am I the a-hole for feeling upset that a girl I was friends with benefits with got a boyfriend without even saying a word to me? I, 23 male, just got out of a very toxic relationship and wasn't ready to be with anyone yet. I basically didn't want another relationship and wanted to focus on myself for once, until I met her. We first started communicating when I had to get her number for work. I was the instrument manager for the orchestra and needed to contact one of her friends, so I took her number to reach out. I didn't think we'd talk again, but later she responded to a post I made about relationship trauma in men. She replied saying, "Women go through it too," and that led to a long conversation where she ended up trauma dumping about her past. After that, we started talking more regularly. Things were fine until she sent me a one-view image saying she liked me. Mentally, I wasn't in a place for a relationship, but after hearing everything she had gone through, I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Plus, she was cute and nice, or so I thought. After several deep conversations, she invited me to her place. Since we had just met and she had only recently told me she liked me, I thought it might not be appropriate, but I agreed to come over that Saturday. When I got there, we planned to watch a movie. She made me food, I set up the projector, but then she came into the room wearing just a bra and shorts. I tried to brush it off, but throughout the movie she kept hinting at wanting to kiss. I ignored it a few times, but eventually gave in and kissed her, a mistake. Afterwards, I felt conflicted. I broke my own rule of not getting involved. I didn't know how to tell her I didn't want a relationship, so I stupidly asked her best friend for advice. That blew up in my face. Her best friend told her, and she went off on me. I apologized for not being honest, and eventually I told her the truth. She seemed to understand. Here's where I messed up again. I asked if we could just be friends with benefits. I'll admit I enjoyed that night with her, and I thought it could be a mutual agreement. She agreed, and a couple days later I went over again. We kissed, watched a show, and she even gave me a gift. I felt like an a-hole because she clearly had real feelings. A few days later, I went to a party and realized I might actually want to try being with her. But when I reached out, she had already gone home for the summer. I asked about her plans, and she casually mentioned going to the beach with her friend and her boyfriend. I was shocked. Boyfriend? I had no idea she was even seeing someone. I asked when this happened, and she said it was a week ago, the same night I left her place. Basically, she had been talking to both of us. I was heartbroken. I know we were just friends with benefits, but I feel like she could have at least told me she wanted a boyfriend. When I told her how I felt, she said it didn't matter because I wasn't actually dating her. After that, I stopped talking to her. So am I the a-hole for being upset? Dude, first stop complaining and playing the victim. She did indicate, and you even acknowledged she seemed to have real feelings for you. You made it clear you weren't ready or interested in that. If you're just friends with benefits, she can talk to whoever she wants and doesn't owe you the details at all. The only thing she owed you was clearly breaking it off once she met someone who was ready for a relationship. You quite literally did this to yourself. You're the a-hole.